For all these years, we've been laughing at Rita Glossner, at her mullet, at her acid-wash denim, at her belly button piercing, at the beer can she chucks onto someone else's lawn. To us, she's the big monster of Orson, the neighbor from hell, the one even the cops like Officer Dugan hide from because his house literally backs up to her yard. So here's what hit me the other day. What if we've had her completely wrong this whole time? What if Rita Glossner isn't actually the villain? What if she's the only real victim in the entire show? I know it sounds wild. Let me explain why this changes everything. To buy into this idea, you don't need to dig up some secret writer's note. It's all right there in the show. Nobody puts the pieces together because Rita screams, she charges at people, and she basically acts in a way that makes your brain shove her straight onto a blacklist. But if you tune out the noise and actually watch specific scenes, you find a totally different woman. A woman whose drug addict husband left her for a high school girl. A woman raising 5 kids alone. A woman who gets an ankle monitor slapped on by the system, while her neighbors boycott her own backyard so hard that she ends up sitting in a kiddie plastic pool in plain view of the whole street, because she's got nowhere else to go. And these neighbors are seriously calling her the bad guy? Anyway, hey Axel Gang, let's break this down. I'll start with what's right on the surface, and is actually said out loud in one episode. Halloween, Season 7. Frankie and Sue finally decide to fight back against the Glossners, so they go egg their house and toilet paper it. Standard revenge, right? The Hex took it for years, now it's their turn. So they're sneaking up to Rita's house in the dark, and then something happens that does not match the evil neighbor image at all. Rita is scared of them. Not angry, not threatening, not going on the attack. She's terrified to her core. She's screaming, please leave me alone. She's screaming, I'm sorry, like she's used to apologizing. And then she drops a line that I personally let slide on my first watch, but if you actually think about it, it flips this entire character on its head. She screams, "Alls I got is boys. You don't know what it's like being the only woman in a house full of boys." That's not a villain line. That's a cry for help. That's a woman admitting she herself is a victim of her own kids. Not just a tired mom, a victim. Her nervous system is so cooked that she gets scared by 2 of her neighbors showing up in the dark. She apologizes on reflex like someone used to getting hit. She lives on full combat alert in her own house. I honestly never noticed this before. I just used to skip past the scene like it was another Halloween gag. But it's literally on screen that Rita Glossner is afraid of her own sons. And she's the first one to admit it out loud. Stick with me here, this is the key part. If Rita is afraid of her kids, if they've pushed her to the point where she flinches at any random noise in the dark, then her whole behavior has to be rethought from scratch. All the screaming, the threats to burn down someone's house, the attacks on neighbors, the stolen newspapers, the absurd accusations of Frankie being racist, that's not evil. That's a 20-year-long nervous breakdown. And that's where the puzzle clicks. Because the show gives us one more piece of evidence. And to me, this is the most devastating one in the whole story. Season 9 finale. The big battle. The Hex, the Donahues, and the Norwoods team up and storm the Glossner house. In the end, Rita's kids, all of them get taken away. Some to juvie, some to a reform school, some to regular school under heavy supervision. The pack falls apart. And what happens to Rita? She. Plants, flowers. I'm not joking. In the epilogue, we see the same woman who spent the entire show throwing beer cans onto other people's lawns, jumping on Mike from a tree like a cat and accusing Frankie of stealing her hose while threatening to rain hellfire on her house. That same Rita is calmly tending flowers, calmly making conversation, not smoking on the porch, not drinking beer in front of the whole street. Frankie literally says it in voiceover. Rita's gotten a little more human. Yeah, kids will do that to you. Rita Glossner wasn't a psychopath. Rita Glossner wasn't a bad person at her core. All 9 seasons of aggression, all her madness, all her wars with the neighborhood, that was a symptom. A symptom of one specific disease called single mom of 5 out-of-control kids, abandoned by her drug addict husband, with nobody ever helping her. The second the disease was removed, the patient recovered. Instantly. The writers could have sent her off to jail with her kids. They could have left her just as aggressive until the end. They could have just not shown her in the epilogue at all. But they picked this version. They showed that when the source of stress was taken away from Rita, she became normal. That's not an accident. That's a direct statement from the writers. Rita's family life was literally driving her insane, and we spent all these years laughing at her madness, never thinking about who caused it. Okay, moving on. There's another scene that hits totally different in this new light. Season 1, the episode The Neighbor. Frankie sees Rita at the supermarket checkout. Rita doesn't have enough money for the most basic groceries for her kids. Not steaks, basic food. Frankie feels bad for her, goes out, buys a bag of groceries, brings it to Rita's porch. And what does Rita do? She refuses, rudely, aggressively. Doesn't even say thank you. Just walks off, leaving Frankie standing there with a bag of food on the doorstep. Anyone who's seen the show remembers this scene. And 90% of people think, what a witch, someone's helping her and she's rude about it. But I know how to look at this scene differently. Taking that bag, it's not just taking food. It's taking on a status. It's agreeing, yes, I'm broke. My kids are starving. I need help from my neighbor. For a woman whose only thing left is her aggressive pride, that's total surrender. That's waving the white flag in a war she's been fighting for 20 years. There's a fan theory I picked up somewhere, and it sounds wild, but it makes a ton of sense. The theory is this: Rita could see right through Frankie. She knew Frankie wasn't bringing her food out of love or real sympathy, but half out of fear of the Glossners and half out of wanting to feel like the moral winner. Like, look how good I am. I even helped the trashy neighbor. I'm not sure the writers literally wrote it that way, but Rita, out of every character on the show, has the sharpest nose for fakeness. She can sniff out when people are being phony. That's why she screams at Frankie later, "You're trying to manipulate me. I will not be manipulated." Remember this moment, we're coming back to it. Remember when Rita screams at Frankie about the pumpkin? You don't need two 1%er. It seems absurd because Frankie herself is barely making it. The Hecks aren't rich. They work themselves to the bone, the house is falling apart, the wallpaper is peeling off. But to Rita, the Hecks are rich. Seriously. Frankie has a husband who didn't run off with a high schooler. Frankie's kids go to school, not to juvie. The Hecks can afford to buy 2 decorative pumpkins. They have a pool, even if it's an above-ground one. And this part isn't my theory. It's a direct quote from the show. Remember when Rita Glossner has that moment of honest confession and tells Sue, "Forget it. You're way out of my league. I mean, look at you. You're a rich girl with your above-ground pool, your 2 kinds of chips, and your one dad. One dad. That's the entire town of Orson through Glossner eyes. Sue has one dad. Derek, and probably each of his brothers and his little sister, has their own biological father, different guys who came in and out of Rita's life. Derek literally lists one dad as a sign of being upper class, like an above-ground pool, like 2 kinds of chips. If you raised a kid who thinks having one father is a luxury on the level of owning a private pool, that's not just a hard life. That's a complete catastrophe. And now think about this. Where does this whole crowd of fathers come from? Where does Bill Glossner come from? The drug addict ex who left for a high schooler. The show says it directly. Rita kicked him out. She herself threw a junkie out of the house to protect her family. That, by the way, is the one tough and right decision we ever see her make in her life. The one and only. Bill left behind a mean dog, Razorblade, who runs around the neighborhood. The Glossners refuse to control him. They say, "That's Bill's dog. Let him come get him." This dog is literally the avatar of Bill. Dangerous, out of control, feeding off the neighbors, and impossible to switch off. And Rita lives with this dog the way she lives with the memory of Bill. I don't remember anybody anywhere in the show showing even a tiny bit of sympathy about this. Nobody said, "Hey, you got dumped by an addict for a teenager? That's gotta be rough." Everybody just dodged her like she was contagious. And that's where the puzzle clicks together even tighter. So when, in season 8, Rita literally kidnaps Frankie and forces her to drive a road trip to who knows where, that's not just another criminal stunt. That's the most desperate scene in the whole show. Because the goal of this trip turns out to be, well, I don't know how else to put it. It's the most normal goal of her life. She's going to see her oldest son, Rodney, who moved to Georgia, to meet her newborn grandson. Think about how isolated Rita has to be to end up doing this. She doesn't have a car to drive. She apparently doesn't have a license because the court took it away. She doesn't have money for tickets. She doesn't have a single friend she can ask. Her only option to see her grandson is to scare her neighbor into getting behind the wheel. And she does it. And in the car, in that closed-off space, something interesting happens. Rita tries to act normal. She offers Frankie some Cheez-Its. Frankie grabs a handful. Rita screams, "I said one!" And in between the screaming, you get something like an attempt at a real conversation poking through. This isn't Rita being bad. Rita just forgot how to talk to people. She's lived in fight or flight mode for so long, she's been splitting food with 5 hungry sons for so long that don't give more than one is now her automatic setting. In her world, food is a resource you have to fight over. She wants to see her grandson, not get revenge, not steal, not fight. She wants to see her child's child. That's the most basic human motivation in the entire show, and it belongs to Rita, the only villain. Here we should stop and unpack one more thing that personally messed me up. When the kids got hauled off to juvie, remember I mentioned the flower scene in the epilogue? Well, there's one detail that adds even more meaning to it. The show doesn't show that Rita got locked up too. She fought for her kids until the very end. Until the garage fight where she ambushes Frankie from the backseat of a stolen car and ends up smashing her face into the steering wheel. That's her last battle. She loses. And the system takes her kids. Fair question. Why isn't she crying? Why isn't she losing it? Why is she calmly planting flowers? I think it's because she knows. On some deep level, she knows she didn't make it. That her love, however twisted, however blind it was, wasn't enough to raise normal kids. And when the state takes that off her hands, a mountain falls off her shoulders that she'd been carrying alone for 20 years. That's not joy. That's relief. Those are different things. And the garage scene where Frankie is trying to calm her down by saying, "We're both overworked, tired moms," and Rita responds by smashing her face into the wheel that one reads differently now too. Rita isn't rejecting Frankie because she's evil. She's rejecting her because agreeing would mean admitting the whole truth about her own life. That it all went wrong, that she lost, and admitting that in that moment is impossible. It's easier to swing. But a few scenes later, once the kids are gone, she doesn't have to deny anything anymore. And she relaxes. And she plants flowers. You know what got me about this show the most now? That Rita Glossner is the only character who actually changes by the finale. The hex stay the hex. The house is the same, the car is the same, the wallpaper still isn't fully glued down. But Rita goes from absolute chaos to a calm person. That's a really rare move for a sitcom. Usually the villain in the finale is either beaten, humiliated, or punished somehow. But Rita, she gets freed. That's the word I can't get out of my head. Freed. The show we all watched as a comedy about a regular family with 3 weird kids was actually telling a parallel story this whole time. The story of a woman who got broken by life and who only got freed when the things she was holding on for got taken away from her. And that's, not super fun, honestly. But it's way deeper than neighbor from hell, haha, mullet. Now here's the thought that I haven't been able to shake for days. We've all gotten used to looking at Orson through the hex eyes. And from their point of view, Rita is a nightmare. That makes sense. She really does cause them problems. But if you stand in her shoes for a minute and look out from her rundown house at the street, the hex don't look like tired working class people. They look like an out-of-reach dream. A house that isn't falling apart. A husband who isn't an addict. Kids who go to school. Being able to afford 2 pumpkins. Rita probably wanted exactly the same thing at the start of her life. She just got unlucky. That's it. It's a really simple and really scary message hidden under the sitcom laughs. That the difference between Frankie and Rita isn't a moral one. It's luck. One right or wrong man in your life. One right or wrong turn at age 18. And you're either an exhausted but loved mother of 3 weird kids, or a lonely woman with a mullet and a belly button piercing, sitting in a plastic pool in the middle of her yard. A scary thought. And to me, it makes the show 10 times stronger. So next time you're rewatching The Middle, and Rita Glossner shows up on screen, take another look at her. Not at the mullet, not at the beer, not at the screaming. Look at the woman who fought the whole world alone her entire life because there was no one else. And who finally, at the very end, planted flowers. And if this thought hit you the way it hit me, stick around on the channel because this is far from the last character on this show we need to talk about all over again.